Hi, I'm Meli Score and welcome to another easy achievement video. This video is for Aery, A Journey Beyond Time, the newest title in the Aery series from EpiXR Games. There's a total of 12 achievements for 1000 gamer score. As you can see, all the achievements are progression based, so they'll pop as you complete the levels. In order to finish a level and move on to the next, you simply have to collect all the collectibles within that level. This is not going to be a listen guide, but more of a watch guide. You should be able to follow most of the movements in my video by watching this on a tablet or mobile screen while playing the game yourself. I'm also leaving the narrator sound on during this video as I quite enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments or suggestions, please leave them down below or contact me via socials. If you've completed this game thanks to this guide, please post a screenshot and tag me on Twitter to be entered into the monthly draw. Thank you again to the publishers for supplying me the code.
As long as I can remember, there has been nothing else. Nothing. Just me and deafening darkness all around me. It was a boring time. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Nothing even existed. Without any warning, everything changed one day. There was a bright white flash. I couldn't see anything for quite some time, as I never saw anything else than darkness before. But then, as my vision started to adapt, everything was there. Colors, planets, everything. It just appeared in front of my eyes. A whole world, waiting to be discovered. Every form of life needs a base. So, I started searching for it. I visited countless planets in different galaxies just to finally find one drop of what I called the elixir of life. One drop was all I ever wished for, but it was not what I found in the end. As I finally was able to find the elixir of life, it was very far away from basically everything. However, there was so much of it that it actually covered a whole planet. I was even more surprised to see that the elixir had already started to show its effects. First life forms had already formed inside of the elixir. They started to move around and started to inhabit their planet, their new home. I knew this was it. This was what I had been looking for. This was change. This was something new. This was something interesting. Something I could watch for a long time. Finally, something that would keep me entertained. Something that would rescue me from the deafening boredom that has been my prison for eternity. I decided to stay on this planet, to watch it grow and evolve. I didn't know what I would find here in the future. But it was just so interesting to see how this small world changed so fast. It was fascinating how the small water creatures started to define their own rules of life. Their own way to do things, their own interpretation of evolution. It didn't take long until the water creatures that started so small and fragile began to leave their inhabitation on a mission to conquer the lands. And once they reached the land, there was no going back. It felt like the blink of an eye to me, and suddenly these creatures were everywhere. They grew stronger and bigger than ever before, and they established themselves as the kings of this new world. Little did they know how small and unimportant they were. Well, quite frankly, I think they would not have cared, even if they knew. Time went by, and after a while, the rules of their game of survival seemed to change. While before the biggest and strongest creatures ruled the world, there was something else now. Small and weak creatures, but with the skill to communicate with each other. With a brain. A brain that enabled them to think beyond anything existing so far. They changed everything. Without even recognizing, they changed themselves, and they changed their whole world. They evolved at an incredible pace. They evolved into something else, into thinking beings. They used their surroundings to create tools and weapons. They developed strategies and built traps to hunt down their prey. And they even used fire, the element of destruction itself, to warm their bodies and defend themselves from enemies. I have never seen anything similar to this. These small and fragile creatures took over the planet like a wildfire, and they burned anything that got in their way. It was incredible. These small and fragile creatures managed to defeat every single other animal. They created a world where they had to fear nothing but themselves. Without any natural enemy, the number of the kings of this new world started to grow. They started to live together in large groups, which gave them the power to bend nature to their will. They started to build houses for the poor and giant castles for their leaders. As their resources were too little to feed them all, they started to produce their own food. And finally, they did what they were destined to do, and enslaved some of the other animals. It was at this time that I realized something interesting. Even though they learned how to produce food and how to kill and steal from other animals, they would not be willing to share it with another. It was their biggest flaw that had just revealed itself to me. All of these creatures, they were living together, but not as one. They would rather die than share their fortune with even one other of their kind. These creatures, who conquered the whole world with the help of each other, they didn't want to live together. They only did so to survive. And surviving was what they did. They spread over the whole world and started to live even on the furthest islands. As they had lost their ability to live in the water a long time ago, they started to build They formed alliances and acted like they owned the land that they lived on. Like they had the power to sell the land to each other. They didn't realize that the land was not theirs, that it could not be owned by such small, insignificant creatures. They even started to fight about it. They started to take it, to steal it from their own kind. They started to kill each other for it. But something was different from before. They didn't fight for themselves. They didn't fight for survival. They didn't need to steal the land in order to survive. And they didn't even steal the land for themselves. They stole it for others, for richer people, for people who didn't need to fight in order to kill, for people who did not need to lift a finger in order to move everything around them. These were the new kings of this world, the humans that had not only enslaved the animals, but also their own kind.
secrets on your tongue and the poison in my lungs.
I don't know if it was their ignorance or their arrogance, but the creatures decided to split the world into several parts. They decided that there was not enough space on this planet for everyone. They had decided that some of them were better than others. That some of them deserved to live a life of luxury and abundance, and others were simply needed to create. So it happened that while one half of their world struggled to survive, the other half grew bigger, stronger, and faster than ever before. Villages became cities, and cities needed to be fed.
As the doors behind me close, no cure for
The creatures invented tools to help them, and the tools were different than before.
losing sight of the slowly fading light.
They were strong and moved on their own.
Every passage ends, a new road begins.
They were never tired. They never needed a break. These tools and their sheer limitless power were once again the first step to revolutionize their world. With the help of the new automated machines, life became faster than ever before. The creatures started to travel from one place to another in no time. They built giant highways to transport their food, and even machines that were able to fly. Their cities started to grow up to the skies, until they reached the clouds and even beyond. There seemed to be no restrictions to their cities. They simply started to appear everywhere. Thousands, even millions of humans started living in areas where before only a few animals could survive. And wherever their cities appeared, nature disappeared. Animals died while trying to escape the ever-growing rage of the humans. People who fought against the system disappeared, just as the animals did. There was no space for weakness, no time for reconsideration. Things had to evolve fast. The people had to live somewhere. They had to do something. To believe in something. Over all the thousands of years of their evolution, the humans' belief was the thing that fascinated me the most. Without any evidence and without any knowledge, they acted like their way of doing things was the right way, the only way. And because their own opinion was right, all other opinions had to be false. Most of the time, they went through a lot of trouble to destroy the opposing opinions. Almost always, they used force instead of their minds to enforce their way of life, their opinions. They even fought each other to the death in order to protect their own beliefs. Well, most of the time, they even fought each other to protect the beliefs of someone else. To protect thoughts that were not even their own. Thoughts they didn't even share. Thoughts they didn't even understand. Sometimes, I wasn't sure if they even knew what they were fighting for. Fighting a war for people who called themselves the leaders of the world. People just like them, but still so different. Horrific creatures, so far away from the actual war but still spreading their thoughts and hate through their brainless mannequins. Nevertheless, their world continued growing. Bound to their man-made rules of survival. Caught in a prison of fear, in between different beliefs and dangerous opinions. Ruled by creatures hidden in the dark, hidden behind the thick, still walls of their buildings. Protected by the hate of their blind followers, empowered by their fear. I have seen many things, but this was something different. At times, they had peace, but not because they were happy. It was because they were in fear. They feared their opponents so much that they were not able to move at all. Their fear of the consequences of their doing was so strong that it even seemed like time itself had frozen. Their time had frozen, but everything was still moving, faster than ever before, beyond our imagination. In the end, everything came out like it had to. They got used to the fear, and the fighting continued. Every time more extreme and more violent than ever before. They spread their hate. They killed their own kind, and they burned the land that they used to live on. They took the remains, the ashes of their opponents, to produce more war machines. Bigger ones, stronger ones. They could no longer stop. They got so used to fighting that they didn't even realize what they were doing anymore. They probably never realized what they were doing this whole time. They didn't understand that they were nothing to the universe itself. That their plain existence was in their own hands, and that there was no one who would show up to help them, to rescue them.
Lift my feet off the ground, let gravity take me up. As beautiful as it's been, it's time for me to go.
In the end, they disappeared even faster than they appeared. All of them. It was a sad ending to something that could have been so beautiful. Well, I wouldn't say that all they did was bad, or that they had bad intentions to begin with. They just didn't know when to stop. They didn't know how to respect nature and other creatures. Well, sometimes they didn't even know how to respect themselves. In the end, Everything came how it had to. They reached for the sun, but didn't realize how they started burning. As for me, the time has come to search for another planet. To search for more interesting creatures. To see their way of living, their problems and their solutions. For me, this journey has just begun. And only time itself will show what I am destined to find.